Hello everyone, thank you for joining Tech Podcast. I'm your host and president, Colin O Farrow. Before I introduce our guest today, I would really like to let you know what this channel is all about. Think of this as a TV channel with multiple options. It's not just one podcast, it's multiple. We have a group of 5 covering student life, activities. We also have 2 athletes on tech that will cover sports. And with me, I'll be covering faculty, advisors, members on tech, doing interviews, getting to know them, and what's their thoughts. With today's guest, we have Professor Malloris. He teaches ethics, and what are some other classes you teach?
I teach most of the humanities classes.
Yeah. You teach a horrors class as well.
I teach a horror and film and literature class.
And then
I teach a philosophy of terrorism class. I take students abroad to study.
Are you in charge of the abroad program?
No, there's a committee,
Okay.
and there's a director of that now.
Okay. And this is your second trip abroad, right? Or is it your first?
No. This is maybe this is my second semester study abroad trip with Indiana Tech.
Okay.
But I've taken students on approximately 15, not counting the Canadian trips, trips abroad.
Yeah. I read your bio. You went to Indiana University.
Mm-hmm.
You went to Butler, and you went to a college in California.
Uh-huh.
How did you get to California here, and when did you start teaching at Tech?
When I started, I lived outside the United States for about 18 years teaching at universities.
Wow.
And I came back to the United States for 2 reasons. One was a death in the family that it was rather important that I returned because of that. And shortly after that, I got this position as an adjunct at Indiana Tech.
Yeah.
And then I finally acquired a full-time position here.
All right. Do you ever want to get higher up in that?
No, I have no ambitions in terms of administrative responsibilities.
So why do you do some of the things you do? You teach, abroad. Is it just helping, or is it more?
That's not an easy question to answer, but I think everyone has to kind of be introspective, examine themselves, and I think that it's vitally important to travel. I think lack of experience with the world is a poor way to go through life.
All right. So what are some things that you, like young adults that come into tech, like experience in life, what are like 2 or 3 things you would say that would help you experience life to the fullest? Like travel.
Travel.
Yeah.
Be thoughtful. Learn critical thinking. Read.
That's one thing I'm trying to get into.
And experiment.
Experiment?
Experiment in the sense of, well, something as simple as try different foods. Try a different form of exercise. Try to watch a foreign film and read subtitles. Stay away from what you habitually are drawn to.
Wow, I love the advice. A lot of things we talk about in our classes, happiness.
Yes.
And we talk about pleasure, goodwill.
This is in the ethics class?
Yes, yeah. And our first question for today is, what's the difference between a good and a bad person? It's a hard question. And
it's an impossible question to answer, to be honest with you. I wouldn't know how to answer that in a way that I could be happy with the answer that I gave. I think that there is the reality of moral relativity, and cultures define good and bad in different ways. Obviously, there are commonalities between these ways that they define it. But whether there is such a thing as a purely evil person or a purely good person, I don't know what that would even mean.
So it's kind of like that yin and yang. It seems like everybody has both. It seems like there is no just.
Obviously, there's some people that we designate as villainous and as monsters, and history cannot forgive them. They will always be looked upon in this way. I suppose Hitler is a beautiful example of this.
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't have said beautiful example of a monster,
Yeah.
but Hitler would be an instance of where it would be impossible to look upon him with any kind of favor. However, I'm sure he had many admirable qualities.
Mm-hmm.
We admire leaders who can control. We admire leaders who can speak and persuade.
Mm-hmm.
So now whether this is what you mean by good, I don't know. If you mean morally good, I'm very much dedicated to the belief that history makes that decision, that I don't.
Okay. I like that answer. There is no right answer to that question.
Mm-hmm.
And even some of these bad people, like, can they be forgiven, or is there a way they can change? Do you believe in change in people?
I think change is fairly difficult, but I think change can happen.
Mm-hmm.
I think habit is the ultimate dictator of human life. We get comfortable with our habits, or we think we are comfortable with our habits.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that they play a major role in how we conduct our lives from day to day.
Definitely, yeah. I don't know, it seems like we throw that term bad, good,
Yes.
horrible, like we always have this adjective or narrative to put on somebody.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of forget they have a whole name.
Yes, that's
And
very well said. That was very well said.
And I tell people this a lot. I am not a bad person. I am not, rude. I am Colin O Farrow, and I'm a flawed person. I can't be a completely good person. I've done bad things.
We all have. We all have.
And
I think oftentimes we do things that we consider bad just simply because they were harmful to ourselves.
so
I smoked for many years. I mean, that was a bad habit,
yeah.
very bad habit. And I don't think that there's any doubt that there's something very bad about smoking.
Where do you think government should come in for those types of decisions, like in terms of like cigarettes and stuff? Do you think it's up to the people to like quit the cigarettes, or do you think government should just ban cigarettes?
That's interesting. England is introducing a rather curious law, or they're attempting to introduce a law. There's an age limit in which you buy cigarettes in England.
Yeah.
It's 18, like I think it's here.
I think it's 21.
Is it 21 in the
Yeah,
States?
I think
Okay.
they switched to 21 a couple years ago.
Okay, all right, I hadn't known that. But the age limit in England is 18, and the law is that it will go backwards, the age limit. So
Instead of going up, it's going down.
Yes, no, wait a minute, I'm not saying that correctly because I don't have the law real clearly in mind. So let me put it this way.
Mm-hmm.
When the law's enacted, if you can buy cigarettes, if you cannot buy cigarettes at the age of 17, you have to wait till you're 18, you'll never be able to buy cigarettes. If you are 16 when the law's enacted and you can't buy cigarettes, you'll never be able to buy cigarettes. Even when you turn 63.
How would they know? Like,
Identification, everybody will have to be show identification.
what do you think about this? Like, do you think America should implement this, or you think it's a little harsh?
It's so difficult to, we have this attitude that I think is largely mistaken in the United States, something about free choice and free will. Clearly, tobacco industry has done many dastardly things to get people to smoke.
Yeah.
When I was a child and I left school, I'm talking about grade school, there were people on the street with packs of cigarettes offering them to children. The purpose being to get children smoking, to become smokers at an early age to become used to it, to become smokers.
Yeah, and some of the advertisements back then, we talk about advertisement in class a lot about how they work. And I agree with you because, as communication majors, we use advertisement and marketing.
Advertising is propaganda, isn't it?
Yeah,
and it's very persuasive. They're very skillful at this.
Yeah, and especially in like when I make flyers, we have to, certain colors, font styles. Is it serif? Is it not? How many pictures do you want? Is it a gradient color or is it just a solid color? And then what does this color mean? And people kind of just look at the main logo on that design and they just skip past it and they don't know.
They don't realize the influence it has upon them. I mean, something as friendly as McDonald's Happy Meal. What is this about but ensuring that they have future customers?
Yeah. I mean, back to the cigarette thing as well, the ads back then, the magazines, they had these like colorful, like cartoonish.
Oh, absolutely.
Advertisement.
Absolutely.
And to get to kids,
They even advertised a cigarette, they even branded a cigarette made for women only, Virginia Slims.
But
men could buy them, of course, but they were advertised to women.
And would that, I don't know if that really works, does it?
Of course it does.
So women just buy specific. That's insane.
Let me see. I can't remember what the automobile is that they are advertising to lesbians.
Is it like an American car?
It's a Japanese car.
Is it
maybe it may be Korean. I can't recall. Name a couple of
Toyota, Honda. I really don't know.
I just
Kia.
I don't recall the manufacturer, but they were actually now advertising specifically to lesbians. I mentioned this in a class, and a couple of students said, I know a lesbian, and they drive that car. Sure, products are manufactured for age groups, they're manufactured for genders, they're manufactured for orientation, interests, and they have studied the psychology of what it means to be human, what motivates it and influences humans. And they're very successful at directing these advertisements to the right place and persuading.
Yeah. I have a class called Visual Meaning, and we do these visuals, and basically they are either ads or for social movements or memorials. They're targeted to certain audiences, and when we have to, present this to class, we have to make sure we have that target audience announce.
Sure.
The meaning behind the message, and you really have to break down some of these things, and
absolutely.
It's scary though because they're all hidden. And now it's not just why I think it's scarier is because, some people can look at a print, and there's so much on this print, right? But now we have video and all the hidden messages behind videos, just in 15 seconds could be so hidden, whereas we look at something for an hour in this print and we still don't know what is the hidden message. So I agree with you, advertisements play a role. And
so to return to your question, what do I think government's involvement should be? It's difficult to answer that question. However, it's very clear what companies' involvements are and why they are involved. It's for reasons of profit, indifferent to whether the product harms, whether the product is just a waste of someone's money, a waste of their time. But when you have predators out there, and I do consider this a type of predation, should there not be someone that can protect us from it?
I think so.
Since we cannot defend ourselves from it because we're just not knowledgeable of how these messages work. They begin at a very early age, for example, when we haven't the capacity to critically think about them. shouldn't there be someone or some institution that protects us from them, since their intent is to prey upon us? I mean, one cannot, I think, deny that the tobacco industry, going back to your question,
Yeah.
what is good and bad, is largely an evil industry.
I think it's every cigarette you smoke, it takes 7 minutes. out of
Something
your life.
like that. Something like that. And they knew this for years, and they denied it. They even promoted the health benefits of it.
Even
for a long
doctors were
time.
smoking in the
Mhm.
rooms and all
Absolutely. They even promoted the health benefits of it. And yet they knew and denied that these were extraordinarily harmful to the health. Now, I cannot do anything more than anecdotal research about this. I cannot do large-scale research practices to discover whether this is healthy or unhealthy, whether it's deadly or life-giving.
that. Yeah.
I'm just one human being. So we need someone to oversee this.
So, to a degree, you do think government should at least, come in for some things, especially when it comes for advertising.
I see one purpose for government, and that is to protect me from internal predators.
So, are you more? So, do you believe that? Are you one of those? Yes, more government, or no? Get out of my face. I don't. Less government.
I think, however I answer that, I'm bound to lead myself into, if not a contradiction, a paradox. Generally speaking, I would say I want less government, but I want more government for those things that are dangerous to me.
Yeah. I feel like
For those who wish to do me harm.
you see, one thing we did mention in class was, every time there's a new law, that's another restriction of your freedom.
Yes. Yeah, law is, whether you're talking about moral laws or government laws, they are restrictions of human freedom.
Yeah, so it seems like let's say you're just starting a business. Is it as easy as it sounds? And it's not. You have all these loopholes and all these papers you have to sign, and all these. I think some of it is unnecessary. How hard it is to get into some of these things, like even college. I felt like the FAFSA form, the application and the fees you have to pay, and then making sure you get in the housing, and then make sure you choose your meal plan, and make sure
Sure.
It's tough. I mean, I do appreciate it though. It helps me become more of an adult and less reliant on my parents.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like there is a lot of
There's, the tendency of government, I think the tendency of most organization is towards bureaucracy, towards rules and paperwork, and I'm not responsible for this. Go see him in the next office, and he says the same thing. There's a fear to make decisions in this country, but what is wisdom about? If wisdom is not knowing when to leave people alone and when to help them, I don't know what wisdom would be.
I want to get into that wisdom because it seems like what you just said is very different from what most think wisdom is. I feel like people think wisdom as just knowledge or experience. Could you deep dive further into your what do you think wisdom is?
Wisdom is really something very simple and impossible to attain as a human being. How does one live the best life possible for them? We just don't know the decisions we make today, the consequences they will have tomorrow. That's just the very nature of existence, isn't it?
Yeah,
That,
I agree.
how often do people think or say, I wish I hadn't done that, or if I'd have known then what I know now? That's the very nature of life. We just don't know what tomorrow will bring, or we can't be certain that the decision we are making is correct, or what the consequences of that decision will be. And I don't think governments can be wise. I don't think that most leaders have the capability of wisdom. And I don't think that that's through any fault of their own. That has something to do with the very nature of existence, that we just cannot know what comes tomorrow, what our decisions will bring. It is possible, I suppose, to make educated guesses. It is possible to look back upon experience and try to avoid something that mistakes are very good at, disguising themselves. So, for example, I've made this mistake today. Why will I make it tomorrow? It looks different. It looks like a different temptation. It looks like a different being.
Yeah.
The flaws of life are great impersonators.
Do you think mistakes, do you think people make mistakes because of where they were born or what they are used to? Or it could be a mixture of both.
I'm not sure I understand the
So
question you're asking.
some people say, well, like culture. I grew up in this culture. This is why I do certain things.
Sure.
And then you could say, well, I'm used to doing this. You know, this is now it could not just from growing up, but like let's say cigarettes. You start smoking cigarettes. You're used to smoking cigarettes, so it's harder for you to.
Well, there's two things that's going on here. It was a culture of smoking when I was growing up. It was acceptable to smoke when I was growing up. You could, as you noted, doctors smoked in doctors' offices. It was just something that people did. And there wasn't an awareness or even the information that these are extraordinarily harmful for your health. People were not made aware of this. So it's a combination of once you take it up, and a cigarette is a perfect product. If you ever want to make a perfect product, study cigarettes. Just the shape of the box, the color of the box, the pictures that are on the box, the cylinder that is a cigarette, and what? It has properties that apparently are addictive, and you light one and it vanishes right away as you go to another one. It's the perfect product, isn't it? I can't think of a better product than the cigarette.
Yeah, because I mean,
You can romanticize it. You know, James Bond, the spy in the movies, he smoked. There's something very romantic. If you look at older movies that are romantic.
aesthetic, yeah.
Yeah, they're very aesthetic.
No,
very
you're
pleasing.
right. I think there's a person in our class named Ryan. He did I think they did a visual over like a cigarette or something, or they chose a cigarette or something, and it wasn't because they smoked, but it was just because
It's a
they thought
beautiful. Sure.
it's cool. It has an aesthetic. You're not wrong. You know, I get that. You know, there is an aesthetic there, and another thing is it limits you. So like how you say it's a perfect product. You know, it goes away real quick. And if you want more, well, you have to get the 100 size, and then you don't like that. Well,
I mean, I don't know how long it takes now to smoke a cigarette. Probably just a minute or two.
Yeah.
But it's gone, and then there's another one there for you. And then when that pack's gone, you need to buy another pack. What better product than something that you buy, that you want, that you need, and it disappears, and you have to buy it again?
yeah,
That's the perfect product. And then when you consider the aesthetic appeal of it and the ethos of it, I mean, Oh, consider Marlboro. Do you remember the advertisements for
Marlboro
Marlboro?
Man?
The Marlboro Man, the
think
loner, the mysterious figure that's on the desert by himself. He can take care of himself. Any problem that arises, you'd want to be by his side.
And he had a cigarette.
Yeah.
It seemed like he was
I think he
just-
died from lung cancer.
Wow. Wow. What do you think when people say, well, I smoke more than a pack of cigarettes a day?
I haven't heard someone say that for many years.
Wow. You see, I remember growing up.
Not many people that I know now smoke. Here at Tech, I don't think many students smoke cigarettes.
No.
We have too many athletes for that.
Yeah.
So I'm just not around many people that smoke cigarettes.
Yeah. And they got vaping now. Do you think
And then
vaping
vaping is
do you
interesting.
think vaping will take up the cigarette scene, like growing, like you don't, like instead of older people smoking cigarettes, there would just be vaping?
I think that's the intention.
Do you think all the nicotine products are like working together? I mean, I think.
Do I think there's a conspiracy? Only in the sense that advertising itself is a conspiracy.
Yeah, I feel like the same, like even like just cigarettes. The people that are running these cigarette companies are the same with the Zen pouches, tobacco,
I agree.
like,
I
and
agree.
then vaping as well, because the nicotine that's in these vapes, they used to be from 2 to 3%, and now they're going up to 5 to 6.
Sure, and then the flavors.
The
flavors are clearly marketed towards young people.
and then the
cotton candy.
Yeah, and then the marketing for it is like people never smoked a cigarette before, but then they pick up the habit of vaping. I'm just like, wasn't the vaping supposed to be an alternative for people to quit? And now it's just like people just picked it up on, and they've never smoked a cigarette, never been addicted, and you just got addicted to something that was supposed to help the addiction that you never even had. So I find it crazy, and I feel like even the Zen pouches, those are contained with a lot of nicotine, and I see them all around campus.
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with the Zen pouch.
Zen pouches, okay, so basically cigarettes, vaping, tobacco, like chewing tobacco. Then there's Zen pouches. It's not. It's
Do you
not
chew it? Do you smoke it? Do you?
No, it's not chewing. Like, I don't really know what people do when they like put, but it's the same thing that like chewing, but you just
Maybe
leave
just
it
sucking
Yeah, it's
on
a
it?
pouch. It's not like a bunch of
Oh,
stuff.
I see.
Yeah,
I
so
see.
it's just nicotine, but no tobacco.
Is it
just,
flavored?
I think
must
they have.
be,
It has some like different colors, so you have flavors. Definitely. The flavor. Do you think that is what they?
Oh, I
catch
think
people?
the flavoring is especially with the vaping. I think this is marketed to children.
Yeah. See, because one thing is not a lot of people like the taste of a cigarette. And then the marketing is, well, they have this flavor. And one thing you can't get from cigarettes is flavored cigarettes. So you go to these vapes, and they last longer. They last longer than and I don't know. There's something sketch about it because they say it's safer as well. That's the marketing behind it. There's less chemicals in this.
Yes.
Can you really buy that? Because in the next 10 years, there might find a huge issue.
Sure.
And it's just like, and another thing, cigarettes. People will smoke cigarettes 20 plus years. Then they will receive their heart disease, heart problems.
Emphysema.
But it seems like a couple years ago when people were vaping, there was a few people going to the hospitals as quick as a year or two of vaping. So like that right there needs to be studied.
Sure.
Varying off from that, we did talk about, wisdom, and another thing I want to get into is happiness because we talk so much about it in our class. Do you think this thing we call love is interlinked with happiness? Do you think they are two separate things?
I think that it depends upon what you mean by love. If you mean romantic love, if you mean love of your pet, love of your family, love of your nations, we use that word love rather loosely.
So is it different from like, oh, I like this thing, or I love this thing? Does that mean anything different?
No, I think someone's just playing with language.
Yeah.
I really like Coca-Cola. I love Coca-Cola. I don't know what the distinction is, if there is a distinction.
Okay. And then what about in terms of romance? What
In terms of romance, I think that's important for life.
you think so?
Yeah, I think that that's important for happiness. I think that we talked about that when we talked about Mill and his discussion of happiness, that happiness is not an abstract whole. It consists of parts. There's many things that contribute to human happiness.
And you think romance would be one of those categories?
Certainly. I mean, we are gregarious beings. We are beings that need affection, romantic affection, a tender look, perhaps even to some extent, romance may be one of the strongest forces that help forge our identity as a person.
I like that.
If you understand what I mean by that.
What do you like in turn like forge like? What do you, go into like deep dive into that.
Okay, so if someone likes you in a romantic way, which is perhaps the most intimate way a person can feel towards another person, this is certainly ego boosting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, imagine a situation where someone is just always rejected.
Yeah.
This is going to be quite
I get what you're saying.
debilitating
Yeah.
for their ego.
No.
Imagine a situation where someone is invariably accepted. It's got to be rejuvenating for the ego.
Okay.
I think that that's one of the most important characteristics of romantic involvement, that it really forges your identity to some extent, your belief of how others view you. Of course, we want friends, but once again, there's nothing more intimate in terms of a romantic involvement.
Yeah.
And that is the one that seems to be most provocative in terms of self-confidence, lack of self-confidence, criticism of oneself, admiration of oneself. I mean, if you stop and think about all the products that are out there just to attract someone else in that way. I mean, when a woman or when a man goes to the Y and works out, he's not there to get the compliments of his pastor, is he?
No.
No. Or the guy that changes his oil. He's not there for that, is he?
Okay, I get what you're saying. One thing we hear a lot when it comes to like romantic things is, she's the one. It was meant to be. This is fate. Do you believe this thing as fate? Do you think there is
Well, if
one
I can
person
really be honest, I fall in love 3, 4, 5 times a day at first sight. So,
I agree. I agree.
I think most men would.
Yeah.
But I think that there are mismatches.
Definitely.
There are certainly mismatches, and there are people that are matched in some way. They have, I don't know whether it requires the same interests, common interests, or whatever, but do I think that there is a soulmate?
Yeah.
If so, that's something that is built, not something that fate has said,
Wow,
these
okay.
two are matched. If there is a soulmate, that's something that the two people build together.
Wow. I like that. I like that answer. All right, fate, and then there was luck. You believe in this thing called luck.
I have no choice but to believe in that. Now, what that is, I have no idea. So, if I buy a lottery ticket and win, is that out of luck, or is that just out of something a little bit more understandable, like probability?
Yeah, like chance or like probability.
Are we really talking about just probabilities?
That's where our next
that are
question.
actually quite understandable. Where luck, we move that off to some kind of mystical or mysterious realm.
Why do we think of it that way, though?
I guess well, to be honest with you, I think we can look at most things and think of it in a variety of ways.
Mm-hmm.
We can think of it more precisely in terms of, for example, in this conversation, we're talking about luck or just chance, probabilities that can be calculated. Or we can mystify it. And luck is the mystification of, I don't know what's going to happen next. I hope this happens.
Yeah. So like, okay, I'll use my coming to college.
Yes.
You know, I'm not an athlete. I mean, I had good grades coming out of high school. I had a really good GPA, but I didn't take all these AP and dual credit classes. You know, and I feel like there's people here that actually did take those classes, did do more extracurriculars than I did more sports than I did.
Right.
That is more well-deserving than that deserves more money than I received coming out. You know, a lot of the things I got was, you know, I got a lot of grants that cover things and, you know, a loan that would cover the rest. But like, it seems like I hear some stories and there's people that are really deserving of, you know, some like these things, like, you know, they are here for athletics. They do more extracurriculars. They have better grades. Their degree is probably harder than mine. I always think like, I tell myself I'm sometimes lucky to have this opportunity here, you know.
Luck, it's an okay word to use.
Yeah.
It really is. I don't think we have to be precise in all our dealings with life. Luck. You have to forgive me. I mean, it's an interesting question. On the other hand, I'm not sure exactly what is there such a thing as luck?
Like, do you think luck exists in like do you think you could get lucky? You could be lucky, like a lucky person?
I think people make oftentimes very bad decisions, and I think that they probably too often contribute the outcomes of these bad decisions to bad luck. When if they would have made a slightly better decision, they would have had slightly better luck.
Yeah.
I think that's certainly the case, that we often attribute to luck what is
like,
our fault.
Yeah, I see what, definitely. Because you were saying basically like, you do all these wrong things and then the outcome is, well, it's bad luck. You know,
now, if someone goes to buy a lottery ticket and they don't win, they say, I just have bad luck.
The chances of you actually
what you expected to win? That would be good luck? I mean, you had bad, I mean, of course it's bad luck. I mean, it's written in it. It's not bad luck. It's the luck that you were going to have because you had no chance of winning.
Yeah, definitely. I have one question. You know, when we're in class and it seems like moments you have an optimistic view.
Yeah.
And then there's pessimistic views. Are you more of an optimistic or on a pessimistic side of things?
Okay. I do not, and I'm not sure that I have control over this, I do not let my philosophical views determine my mood.
Yeah.
So most of the time I'm in a pretty good mood. I don't have many bad moods. Philosophically, I am a pessimist.
Okay.
But I do not let that view of life affect my moods or how I live my life.
Okay. Yeah. Do you think the world is progressively getting worse or better?
Well, let's see. Three quotations come to my mind. One from the Bible, "There's nothing new under the sun."
Okay. Is that in Ecclesiastes?
I believe so.
Okay. It seems like you would like to read that book out of all books in the Bible.
One from a French director, Jean-Luc Godard, "Everything changes so it can stay the same."
Everything changes so it can be the same. Huh.
So, for example, we have to have new children, don't we? The old ones die away. We have to have new ones so we can have a war.
Hey, speaking of war, here, I have a question. I actually read a book. It was called Critical Lessons, What Schools Should Teach. And they talk about, in one of the chapters, we should teach kids the art of war. Not to have war, but what war is. Do you think war is ever ethical?
No.
Never? Okay.
No, war is always evil.
Evil. And then do you, it seems like no one wants war, but then how does it happen? You know, it seems like we all agree that when we were reading Inaugural Address, Lincoln was saying that both the South and the North both didn't want a war, but then so happened to blame it on, slavery.
Yeah, I do not think humans have wisdom. I think many humans are under the illusion that they have wisdom, but I don't think that there is human wisdom. And war is, to my way of thinking, a very clear piece of evidence that there is not human wisdom.
Do you think there'll ever be a day without war? Or you just think it's, think it's always gonna be a thing?
It'll always be something with us.
Definitely, yeah.
Don't misunderstand me. I'm not suggesting that there may not be reasons to go to war, but war itself is evil.
Yeah. See, we have the issue with we are not gonna get into this, but Ukraine, Russia, we have all of this, and it seems like little mini ones going all around.
Sure.
What do you feel like us as what do you think we should play? What role do we play? As Americans, do we just stay out of it? Do you think we should help? Do you think, because some people think of us as the police officers of the world,
Yeah. Dwight Eisenhower, he was the general that led the U.S. Armed Forces during the Second World War, and he was the President of the United States for 8 years. When he left office, he gave a farewell address to the nation, and he said, "Beware of the military-industrial complex." This was a general in the U.S. Army. This was the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, and he said, "Beware of the military-industrial complex."
And why do you think he?
Because I think he recognized that what we see today is exactly what would happen, that it becomes, war is always about profit or resources, something that enhances the coffers of someone else.
Yeah. Do you, speaking of war, it seems
I think it's outrageous that as wealthy as this country is, so much money is put into war, to the military-industrial complex, for the creation of wealth for a few people.
No, I agree. That money could definitely go into other avenues. I feel like, I know I'm a huge advocate for students and stuff. I really like education. I feel like students have a tough time paying off their first year, or they go into their first year and it's rigged. I think your first year of college, that's where they get you the most money out of you. The most they. I feel like in terms of I feel like that can go to education, healthcare, and then there's even debate about that in our country whether it should, but then we're just gonna let that money sit and pile up and not send it anywhere. You know, I feel like I agree with you. I feel like government should protect. So like, and they use, I mean, the military is a protecting thing, but at the same time, it feels like what you said. It's more like aiming it towards like a war or something, or you're paying it towards that instead of.
I mean, the world we live in, countries do need militaries to defend themselves. But I'm not persuaded, I see no reason to believe that that's the purpose of our military.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, do you know anyone that's been in the military? My brother was in the military, and I mean, he did 4 years and got out. He did not like it. It wasn't his thing. They do talk about opportunities in the military, but I feel like they don't talk to you about your starting pay. You know, what you actually have to, like my brother was a Marine, you know, and their motto is the few and the proud and the brave. And the reason is because there's so few people going into the Marines, and they're the bravest because they go up to the front lines if there is something going on.
First to fight.
And a lot of people don't know this, they actually get less funds than every other branch, because think of it as the Army is making the equipment, they get the more, and they have the more people, so they get the more funds. And then Navy is making naval equipment. So
I think once you turn war into an industry, you've lost the battle. You've lost the soul of your nation. War, it looks like it's inevitable. It looks like it's often necessary, but it doesn't have to become a product. An industry.
I couldn't agree.
In which the goal is profit. And that's exactly what Eisenhower was warning against. And I feel very safe about being critical of war here under these circumstances, because Eisenhower, the President of the United States, warned against the situation that would rise today.
You know, in our class we're doing debates right now. In what way do you think, you know, disagreements can encourage like a good outcome? Like, how do you think a disagreement could move a country forward or advance in something?
I think that's a tough one. When especially you're dealing with social issues like gay rights, transgender rights, issues that, relatively speaking, are new in the public discourse. There's going to be anger. Emotions are going to enter into it. People are going to fall back upon just, well, it's always been this way, so why should we change it? Or any change is wrong. I'm not sure much can be done about that. I think that oftentimes with social issues, we just have to accept the fact that people are going to bring to the table more emotions than reason.
You know,
more anger than a desire to find a compromise or even a desire to find friendship.
I feel like a great example, and you probably watched this movie. We're watching in our group dynamics class called 12 Angry Men. You know, how one of them disagrees and then ends up getting the whole crowd, you know, and it's, you could tell that some of them had emotion. Like I think it was like two of the older people that were like, you know, they were so adamant. Like you could tell that their emotions were what was really making them vote no or yes. And in terms of critical thinking, you know, it seems like once we deep dive into some of these things, you know, things do change.
They do if you can convince. What class are you watching this in, by the way?
Group dynamics.
Group dynamics.
Oh, I got to tell you something hilarious. That happened today. So this is for the final, that movie. We watch it and we have to do like an essay over it. We did have you ever watched the show Shark Tank?
No.
Okay. Do you know what it's about?
Not really.
Okay, it's basically people that are entrepreneurs and they sell a pitch to the Mark Cuban and like investors.
Okay.
So like, hey, you can have 5% of my company for 100K. Like, you know, you give me this money, I'll let you have this part of my company. so they get help and more
Okay,
profit.
okay, all right.
So our project, we got in groups and we made our like products or service. I thought mine was the best. What we did, my group, was we made a subscription box for ladies on their period. Every month they would get a box that would ship to their house.
Oh, okay.
Or if you're a husband and you
tampons.
yeah,
and
and
things
if your wife didn't want to go and get it, and you're a husband, you could order it instead of having to go and embarrass yourself. That was
Okay.
kind of the point of this.
Okay.
And then there was 2 other groups that did fitness, like an app and like food. Those did not do well. The one we fought against, though, was this thing called a mood light. It was a light bulb that would change colors, and it based on your emotions, it would change colors, and it would help. I don't believe in that. But apparently we got
There was a mood stone or ring out for many years.
mood stone, yeah.
Yeah.
See
But it was touching your skin. It could.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
see, that's different then. So they get this light, right? And we win. We have the most votes until a few other people come into class. And the person that was CEO of the mood light buys votes. He literally bought votes in class.
Really?
Yeah, he was like, hey, $5 and you vote for my thing, and he won. Like, I mean, we almost
He actually paid?
Yeah, he actually paid.
And he was permitted to do this.
Yeah, I'm being so serious.
Okay.
This is what I'm about to ask. So he gets 3 votes, spending $15 in total to get 3 votes just to beat us by 1.
And what was the advantage in beating you?
We wouldn't have to take the final.
Oh.
So
You have to take the final and they don't.
So yes, I'm ahead. So I actually did it already, but like I shouldn't even reclaim. But I'm like buying votes. Like if we had to do like a voting system, would that ever would you care how the votes were collected?
When you say if we had to do a voting system.
Yeah, in our class.
Oh,
ethics.
that's a rather interesting freedom.
Yeah, because she was like, I asked the teacher, I'm like, hold on, like he can buy votes, and she was like, I mean, basically get some money out and buy some votes. But for me, I just didn't think it was like an ethical thing. I just never had that thought.
Of course not.
But the
Of course
person that
it
wants
isn't.
to win is willing to just.
Sure.
I mean, I would never pay for. I mean, I need my money, so like to pay for a vote is just overdoing. But I mean, there was actually a point where I was just like, well, he's buying votes. Why can't I buy votes?
Yeah.
And I feel like in her class, she's just like, well, you think people don't buy votes in real life? You don't think?
So she's really trying to get the class to the class itself, not the students, but the class itself to reflect the real world. I mean, there is corruption.
Yeah.
Whenever somebody wants their will to succeed, their willpower to succeed, there's going to be corruption.
Yeah, because it was a 7 to 6 votes, and then the rest of the votes went to the 2 other, and then it got to us 2 being the top 2. They did a voting count on us.
Now, I wonder what would have happened if somebody that he paid for their vote decided to vote their heart. Keep the money.
See, that's what I was trying to get him to do with me. I was trying to be like, hey, I'll do that. Pay me, but you have to. Since I'm the owner of this group, you have to pay me $15. I'm not doing $5. He's like, all right. He didn't do it because I definitely would have been waiting for everyone to vote and then cast my last vote so we could win.
Sure.
Definitely, because that was the interesting part of my day today. The losing to someone buying votes for me. You ever see someone in our class doing that? Like just buying, like if we did a actual vote system, instead of for like a product, we do like debate, like our debates.
Sure. Who's the best debate? So
or whose proposal's the best.
Yeah.
Even though one proposal is better than the other. I got the votes for it. That bothered me today, and
It probably should, but on the other hand, I think it's rather interesting that the professor allowed this. He or she?
It was Professor Hug.
Okay, that she allowed this to reflect the The world at large, yeah.
Yeah. And then there was a part at the end of the class which like, all right, I'll have to actually go check and see if he actually did a transaction between those people. I'm like, he obviously did. He shook the hand. I was right there like, yeah, my group was not happy because we were just one vote away from naturally winning.
Right.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't want to take up your time for too much, but that's pretty much all the questions for this video. I'm really grateful for you coming up on this show.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes.
You're a wonderful interviewer.
Really, I appreciate it. I'm doing better, and this is our first video pretty much.
Wow.
So yeah, I tried to, I mean, the screen.
I was actually sitting here thinking, damn, I wish I had your presence on camera.